tired, drooping eyelids slid past blue irises. A jolt brought Rarity back to her senses. She gasped at the shock of almost falling asleep, startled her awake. Her panicked eyes glanced around the room. A sewing machine was before her, its whirling motors humming and buzzing audibly on quiet, dim room. The sun had long set behind the curtained windows, moonlight shining from underneath the heavy, hung-up cloth. A soft sigh escaped her lips. It was hushed that she could manage. Blue irises shifted upwards towards the clock, nailed onto the wall above what appeared to be a shrouded cork board. The cork was nowhere to be seen except for the little patches of beige here and there. The rest was buried under the pinned pieces of paper with scribbles and notes, long-forgotten ideas on a rainy day. Some were crumpled, torn, and withered, as if her ideas were written in a rush. But as Rarity continued to stare at the cork board, she felt a lump in her throat forming. This wasn't the same lump that formed when she would try to swallow her pride and continue her work, nor when she would hear the screeches from the masses who complained about her work. Her art. No, this isn't the lump tasted of bitterness and hate. She took a shaky breath, trying to calm the flurry of thoughts that wanted to burst forth as she approached the board. A small thought crept in her mind as her horn lit up, illuminating the darkened workroom. So many wasted, unused ideas would remain on this board. She even noticed dust beginning to gather on the corners of parchments. Displaying her age, she eyed the date of the corner of one. 5 years. It has been 5 years since she has sketched that idea. 5 years of being forgotten and tossed aside. 3 years since she felt the creativity flow from her mind and would translate itself into visions and images of colorful fabric interweaved with the finest stitching from all of her own hooves. But now, well, that wasn't the case. Now she created the pieces, and then she dealt with the complicated details. She would take Rarity's creations and make sure they were consumable for masses. She could ensure every pony in Equestria would only wear the latest, greatest from Rarity's signature couture. She could maintain the profits of the wealth. Just create, Rarity. That's all you have to do. I'll take care of the rest. Rarity swallowed down the regret as she recalled that conversation, now lighthearted and innocent. It pretended to be. How everything seemed to be much simpler then, compared to now. It sounded like a brilliant plan. Rarity was getting older, and despite being an artist at heart, she wanted to focus on the creation of it. The process of fashionable art. She would handle all the formalities. The back end, she was the younger after all. Another sigh. The ticking of the clock seemed to echo in her ears as she turned away from the corkboard and looked vacantly at the closed door on the other side of the room. The fluorescent light from beneath reached the edge of Rarity's hooves as it bled across the carpet. She wondered how long it had been since she last left the room. Usually she brought her meals so she could focus, but considering the time and the pain growing in the pit of her stomach, Rarity decided to take a chance. She turned back to the sewing machine. Though a piece of fabric hung loosely on it, the stitching on it seems to were neat, tidy, and a quality only completed with assemble. She had completed the 4 outfits that were required for her that day. Surely she would just leave and go downstairs and... Hoof steps. They resonated from the beyond door. Rarity felt her chest clench when she heard them. The sweat began to bead on her brow as she raced back to the sewing machine. Rarity's horn glowed as fabric and needles were lifted into the air and fitted themselves into a bare mannequin nearby. Cloth-placed pins inserted, and the outfit took shape. A simple red dress with white frills at the end that flared out. To her normal standards, it was too plain, too boring. But when it did new and exciting fashion matter, when every pony had to like it. That tight feeling resurfaced as she tried, shutting her eyes and calming the nerves. When did things get so this bad? When did things become their reality? This empty transitional state of being. When did This door swung open with a loud bang, flooding the room with light. Rarity didn't dare glance at the door as she continued to pin the fabric in place. The older unicorn knew to keep her head down and tried to stay focused on the task at hoof. She could hear the footsteps getting louder, then abruptly pause. It was too long of a pause for her liking, so she finally peeked over her shoulder. "Do you like it?" Rarity's wizened, raspier voice broke the silence. She could feel the tension in the room as it sent a shiver up her spine. When no response came, she shut her eyes again, praying for just a simple response. When it still didn't come, a sigh behind her made her shoulders slump in defeat. Turning around completely, the light from the hallway shined in her eyes, blinding her. She winced her eyes and refocused, falling upon with the white unicorn mare. She stood before her looking down, pale hairs of pinks and purple, styled and primally placed in their taut skin and fur kept lines and wrinkles hidden away. It was then Rarity realized that why there had been silence. A little small glowing box. That damn cursed thing. Rarity pressed her lips in frustration as she glared at the distracting wedged contraption in the pony's hooves. "Sweetie?" Rarity questioned, trying hard to bury the annoyance boiling at the back of her throat. The white unicorn held a single hoof, as if to end a conversation that hadn't had the chance to start. "That looks like shit," she muttered, never taking her eyes off the small box. "I told you we need clothes that every pony will want." Sweetie's tone was so far detached from her own words. They sounded bored, vacant of feeling warmth. Her focus was on the device on her hoof. It continued to glow with the mare's green orbs glued. It flashed lights, casting deep shadows upon the younger mare's face. But it was that moment that Rarity caught a glimpse of the wrinkled corners of her sister's eyes. She wondered how much had really changed since she stared at her sister's true age, finally shining back at her. Rarity waited again, hoping that her sister would continue, but the only grating commotion of the small box filled with silence. Another sigh. "That is something every pony will like," Rarity insisted. "How do you know that?" Finally the mare looked up, pulled away from her trance. "Have you asked any pony?" The word stung sharp as Rarity felt the nagging lump again. "Well, no, because some pony here has me on a very strict schedule." Rarity spat back. "Maybe I could ask some pony if would let me." "Look, you asked for my help, and in order to make sure you're a part of this fashion week, you have to get these outfits done." The glow dimmed on the device, causing the hallway light to cast harsh shadows across the room. "I did exactly what you asked," Rarity screamed. Pain, frustration, rising to the surface, but the relief was short-lived. Her tone was in her voice. She knew it was too much. The first thing that came to wince when she stepped her back. Her magic stopped, the pins, needles, and the fabric falling to the floor behind her. She locked eyes with her sister, the fear of beginning to set in. Fashion Week was just an important and crucial affair. Every pony knew that, but as Rarity shook off her head, she felt the waves of anxiety crashing into her. "I'm sorry," she blurted out, realizing her mistake. "Do you want your medicine?" It was a simple question. One would not assume how tainted those words really were, as they left the younger mare's lips. The words were too cold and sterile. The white fur that stood on the end of the question lingered in the air between them. This was cruel, devastating truth that continued to stare back at Rarity. She couldn't function outside these walls, not without assistance. The only way she could continue her art was with her help. She had known this for so long now, especially after the pain started. The unending, miserable ache that crept into her bones would remain for days on end. How was she supposed to weave these visions in her mind if that crippling pain was there? Magic can only go so far. "And you sure this will help?" "Yes, just one. Here. That's all I'll give you for now." That relentless lump again. This was her prison. If she wanted her creations to become a reality, this had to be her fate. Maybe she should have listened to that old weathered orange mare back in when all this started, when it was just a simple problem and not a complex. interlocking torture chamber of her creation. We're getting too old for this, Rares. Let's let the youngins take over while we enjoy our golden years. I'm sure Sweetie can look over the books and business. Rarity bit her cheek, recalling the naive response that day. She felt like a fool now. Glistening blue oceans glared back at the young unicorn, but quickly faded behind the wrinkles that were veiled in the shadows. Yes, I want my medicine, was all Rarity spoke, and turned around and resumed to her work. Horn glowing and needles floated and resembled to resume their weaving into sheer fabric, while she tried to push down the rush of emotions whirling around her mind. Good, Sweetie Belle replied. She could sense that the shift in her room as she examined the other pieces that were pinned together on the mannequins, each one with a single color and accents of white and black on edges. She didn't understand why tastes were becoming more and more simpler amongst ponies today, but the stakes that kept her from questioning it. I brought you dinner, she added curtly, levitating a covered tray resting on the table nearby, pushing it and shoving the fabric in the process. Thank you, Rarity mumbled, not turning to look at your sister. You could take them all once I finish this piece. The stale tone signaled Sweetie that Rarity was done with the conversation. Sweetie sighed, irritated as she rolled her eyes. The stress of the situation grated on her nerves. She had agreed to this arrangement 5 years ago. Within that time, Rarity had become nothing but a recluse. Her sister got to stay in this room for a day in and day out, with food delivered and ponies coming and going as she pleased, yet this is how she acted. This was the thanks of gratitude Sweetie was given. If it wasn't for her, Rarity would be out on the streets and the business would have. The small black mirrored box hummed to life in her hoof, brightening the room. Sweetie's attention turned back to it. More plants, more charity events, more press tours, more fashion shows. It was important that she attend to these felicity one by one, being the face of Rarity's fashion empire. She glanced up at her sister, who continued to work on the fabric placed still on figure, a delicate operation of sorts that only one so skilled could do. The raw talent, some would say, but Sweetie Belle didn't care. All the talent in the world wouldn't matter if there was no financial stability behind it. The younger mare turned to her hooves and exited out of the room. The doors clicked softly, shutting and sealing her in her sister's room. Another sigh. She wondered how much longer she would need to endure this. Shaking her head, she peered out the device off one more time, with her eyes falling on the title of the email, The Late Rarity Fashion Line. She swallowed hard, wondering if she could get a lock for her sister's door. What's up, my pretties? It's the Lion Queen here. I want to appreciate you all for tuning into this video, and I do appreciate you guys supporting my video by giving this video likes and stuff. If you really enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, comment and subscribe if you're new, ring the bell for notifications to when I upload so that way you guys will get updated for whenever I upload. If you want to follow me on Twitter or DeviantArt, feel free to leave a follow on those if you are interested in following me on those socials. If you want to support my backup channel, known as Miss Dark Shigo, feel free to subscribe to it, as a link to that will also be in the About page section. And with that being said, and that being the case, thank you so much for watching, my pretties, and as always, please stay pretty.